بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. Inshallah, today we're going to be talking about the manners of student development. This is part 3. And last time we talked about saliheen, and we talked about the importance of finding
a role model, and we said that the role model is going to be the prophets, the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, and Tabi'een. And we met last time that any path that you do, it actually starts with. And whether you are taking secular studies or whether you're taking Islamic studies, it all starts with you trying to put in imagination and trying to put inside your head what it means and what type of a person you want to imitate. And that's why even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually told us the stories of the Anbiya. The stories of the Anbiya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the stories of the Anbiya, that this is where the stories of the Anbiya start. Where are you on that? How do you complete that story from your side? And this is very important to remember. Don't consider and never disconnect yourself from the story, because Allah Ta'ala says that's how the story began. How do you complete the story? Where in the spectrum on that story? How do you do it? Who do you feel you're part of? And that's why when we look at Aqidah, there's Aqidat al-Wala' wal-Bara'. And Aqidat al-Wala' wal-Bara' is actually a core part of Aqidah, because it is actually you determining that I am part of this group or I am not part of that group. And that's why when we look at the Anbiya, when we look at the story of the Sahaba, it's about you remembering and putting yourself on that story and trying to see, am I part of the saliheen and being proud to be from the saliheen, or am I man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum, or am I going to be imitating another group? Now, when we speak of imitating a group, even imitating the saliheen, at-tashabbuh bil-saliheen, or imitating the saliheen, even if shaitan comes to you and is going to tell you that you're not from them, so why do you dress like as if you are religious? You know you're not. That's not your reality. You know that that's who you are. You're just being a munafiq. That's shaitan's game on you. That's the scheme that shaitan will use on you. Now, on the other side, remember, even if you're not part of the saliheen, imitating the saliheen is part of success. When we say saliheen, we're talking about Anbiya, we're talking about Sahaba. And speaking of Sahaba, one of the very beautiful things, of course, we don't have a lot of information about Anbiya. Yeah, we do have a lot of information about Prophet Musa alayhi salam, or some other Anbiya, but not really a lot of detail that will a lot of times probably relate every single story to one part of our life. And that's why I think it is very important, and I've seen that in my own household, saying the stories, taking one Sahaba, go to the Sahaba alphabetically, choose one Sahabi at a time, make just 15 minutes and just talk about one Sahabi every single day. You form it as a group, that today we're going to speak about the Sahabi, tomorrow we're going to talk about the Sahabi. In the beginning, all those names are going to be confusing. In the beginning, all those names are going to seem so foreign to you. Later on, down the road, every single name is going to have a connection with you. Even in the future, when you're going to become mothers, in the future, when you become mothers, every single day, today we're going to speak about the Sahabi. You might think that your child is not paying attention, but your child is paying attention. Your child will actually you will actually start remembering a lot of names, and guess what? They'll actually have that connection with the Sahaba, and they'll actually make them be their celebrities. This is really important to say, because who you take as a celebrity, who you take as your role model is the person that you're going to start imitating. When you start taking the Sahaba, one after another, you'll start to build in that connection with them, and you'll feel that connection with them, and you will start feeling like they're part of you. Now, same thing with the Tabi'een. The Tabi'een, the Tabi'een, they didn't see the Prophet ﷺ, but they lived with the Sahaba, and taking one Tabi'i and another Tabi'i and seeing the lifestyle that they lived on in the midst of that tarbiyah, and this is something that we're really missing. It's so sad when we actually talk about manners and the adab of talab al-ilm. I think mentorship and tarbiyah, we miss that a lot, because I'll tell you, in my university, when I used to learn, and when I was a student at Kulliyat al-Da'wa wa Usul al-Din, our professors would be mentoring us. I'm not sure if I said this here, but our professors would be mentoring us in the way we even walk down the hallway. They would tell us, girls, you shouldn't be talking and with your loud voices in the middle of the hall. Or we had a professor who was a professor in hadith. Her name is Dr. Maryam Saleh. She was a professor in hadith from al-Qura, and even had an honors in hadith. And she would be the one to even be with us in the bathroom meaning mutawadda. And we would watch. I'll tell you, when me as a little girl, I didn't know what being religious meant. I didn't know. Generally, my family, like a traditional Palestinian family, I didn't know what being religious meant. So I would watch to see the people like down in al-Masjid al-Aqsa. What do they wear under their jilbab? What does she wear under her hijab? So what are they doing? Believe it or not, but I remember one time walking down Al-Quds, and the lady was struggling to hold her children. So I just was passing by, so I pitched in to help her carry one of her children. So she told me, Jazakillahu khairan. I didn't know how to respond. I never heard this. So I went back home and I told my dad, I said, some lady told me Allah Jazaki, something like that. What is that? And then he told me what it meant. Now, this is part of that tarbiyah, even in the area. And that's why choosing the environment to help you with tarbiyah is extremely important. When you say choosing the environment to help you with tarbiyah, because tarbiyah, a lot of times you don't control your own tarbiyah. Your own tarbiyah, you control it by choosing the environment to raise it. Meaning what? If you want to get the tarbiyah of a mu'min, be in the masjid as often as you can. Because you'll surround yourself with people that are trying to be saliheen. If you don't realize the change on yourself, the people in the masjid will start to tell you about the change that's happening to you. When it comes to tarbiyah, what is the word tarbiyah? Tarbiyah, it's a process. Tarbiyah, it's a gradual thing. It doesn't come within a day or two. Tarbiyah, it's going to be giving that supervision and that change and that mentorship all together in order to bring about the complete discipline. Now, in order to get the tarbiyah, remember the guy that killed the 99 people? The guy that killed the 99 people? The guy that killed the 99 people? Now that guy, in the end, he was told to do what? To leave the city. Change the city. Change the area that you're in. And that's very important when it comes to tarbiyah. You may be surrounding yourself with the wrong people, and it may be the reason why you're going through the wrong tarbiyah. Surrounding yourself with the saliheen will let you find the right tarbiyah. Now, when we talk about, well, who do I take as a role model? Remember, in order for you to find the role model, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're talking about. Look at how they joke. Look at the way they're dressed. Look at the way they talk, they eat. Look at what they care about. This is really important because the way they talk, the topics that they care about, the way they dress tells you a lot. We don't have a tool to see what people are on the inside, what they really are on the inside. But we can generally look at the outside to see, did that heart get the iman or not? Did that heart get the iman or not? Because a true mu'min would not be making a clown of himself and joking too often. Because their heart would actually have hubb Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their heart would be thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's absolutely no way that you can joke that often if you really had khushu'. If the person had the saliheen as their example, you would not see them imitating al-fusaq. What is al-fusaq? A fasiq is somebody that got used to the ma'siyah, that got used to sin. There's absolutely no way. If the heart did not like that ma'siyah, you would have not seen it on their action. But because their heart, the word is ushribat. It absorbed, their heart absorbed that sin. They started seeing it as good. Kind of like what we said about Prophet Lut, the people of Prophet Lut. They started seeing sin as if it's something ugly or beautiful. And then what was their accusation for Prophet Lut? Oh, they're people that are seeking purity. They're people seeking purity, and they started seeing purification as disgusting. And that's why when you look at sin, the sin changes who the person is. Not just that, but sin changes their perception. They will start seeing things like tattooing, or things like piercing, or the list goes on and on. They will actually start saying, I like it. I think it's nice. Why did they start seeing it as nice? Because they surrounded themselves with these types of people. They started seeing it as nice. Now, if you tell them, it's not the libas al-salihin, why would you want to do it? No, I think it's nice. Prove it to me. It became something that they surrounded themselves with that they don't even see anymore that it contradicts a pure fitrah, that it's harming the body. They'll start seeing it as nice. Without us realizing, our hearts have the capacity to absorb and imitate from the environment that it gets used to, and the environment that it gets used to starts becoming that frame that it shapes you on the inside and on the outside. Now, generally, when we speak about imitating the saliheen, beware of those that delude Islam. And we talked about this before. You're going to get a lot of people that will delude Islam for you and will tell you a lot of different so and so called interpretations, which is really not necessarily a scholar's or even what the Quran itself or the Hadith itself is saying, but it'll be their interpretation, which is actually outside of the Arabic language or even the Prophet ﷺ's interpretation. But without you realizing, many are going to make it seem like it is very Quranic based or very Hadith based, because it would be taken out of context and cherry picked from Quran or Sunnah. And that's why, remember, it's when we talk about adab of talab al-ilm, it is very important not to necessarily look for those that speak eloquently, but those that speak with ilm. Sometimes the people that have the ilm may not have the tool for spreading ilm. Meaning what? Somebody that might have the ilm might just be boring in delivering their ilm. Somebody that might not have the ilm might just have the tool for spreading it. Now, as a talib ilm, you're not looking for the dish and how it looks. You're looking for the nutrition in what it feeds. Right? Nutrition and what it feeds. That's a talib al-ilm. And you gotta distinguish yourself. Many out there do need the people that are eloquent in speech, even in giving a nice khutbah, or the people that just know how to get to the hearts. Sometimes they may not have the ilm, but they just know how to at least touch the hearts of the people. Alright? This is really important. Pay attention. So for example, if you look at generally the public, some people, or let me say 80% of the people, need somebody to attract them. And those 80% of the people are usually the laymen. The random, common Muslims that are still trying to find somebody that can attract them to the deen. And that's 80% of the Muslimin. 80% of the Muslimin, just 80% of the Muslimin, they're just looking for somebody to attract them to just even talk about simple things about deen. But a talib ilm must not be one of those. Because talib al-ilm aims high. Talib al-ilm, because they aim high, they act as not the 20%, but the other 10% may be the people that might have some ilm. But there's a smaller 10% for talib al-ilm, for talabat al-ilm. Only 10% of the people will be going for the butter. If you are always just with the majority, are you really part of talib al-ilm or are you part of the layman? That's what you want to ask yourself. I'm not saying that it's bad to be part of those that listen to the people, that might give nice maw'idha. It's not wrong. No, sometimes I listen to those myself. Yeah, a lot of times I can pick a lot of mistakes, but still. Even Shafi'ee used to sit and listen to the halaqas of people that are less knowledgeable than he is, just because he wants to get the ilm. Even the Prophet ﷺ, when he asked Abdullah ibn Mas'ud to read him Quran, and he just said, am I going to read it? وَعَلَيْكَ أُنزِلَ, am I going to read it on you when it was revealed on you? And the Prophet ﷺ told him that I love hearing it from others, that when others read it. And that's the same thing. It's okay to hear. I'm not saying don't listen to the rest of the people. But what I'm saying is that if you're a talib ilm, don't only look for those that are eloquent and giving nice talks. Look for those that are giving real ilm. In the beginning it might be boring. But if you want to be talib al-ilm, a leader has to go and aim high. When a leader aims high, they're basically the smaller group, because you cannot have too many leaders. So be from those that look for al-ilm, even if the shaykh was not good in delivering the ilm. Not everybody has the tool, the skill of presenting ilm. You've got some shuyukh that may not have the tool and the skill for giving the ilm, but they do have the ilm. And here in Minnesota, for example, believe it or not, we have some of the best scholars in Quran and in Hadith. To give you guys just an example, in Masjid Dar al-Faruq, Dr. Walid al-Manisi is one of the best scholars in Quran and Qira'at worldwide. Shaykh Tariq Awadallah is one of the best muhaddithin worldwide. Guess what? You go to their classes, there's probably only 4 or 5 people there. You guys, these people are internationally. There's very, very, very few of them. Maybe only 3 or 4 people or maybe 10 people worldwide. How many people do you see in their halaqas? 3, 4, 5? Let's give an example on somebody else. Let's just suppose, this is not to lessen from anybody, but there's no doubt that some of the students, when they come to Minnesota, students of ilm, you'll see the convention center packed, sold out. Right? I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad, but I'm saying that majority of the people don't necessarily look for the ulama. Majority of the people look for a less level in order for them to understand it. What you're trying to get to, if you're a talib ilm, you're trying to get to that level that barely anybody understands them. Why do these scholars have barely any students? Because barely anybody understands their level of ilm. So they will get lost. So nobody comes to them. Because they're too scholarly. It becomes like a jargon to them. No, seriously, it becomes like a jargon to them. So they won't be sitting down there. Because they won't understand anything. So even if you tell them that we've got the scholar, yeah, that's nice, but I'm sorry, I didn't understand anything. So they'll leave. For a talib ilm, if you aim high, yes, there are some gradual steps that you want to take. But you want to remember, if you are a talib ilm, lights and spotlights and where everybody is going is not necessarily where you should be walking. This is for talib ilm. I'm not saying don't go when this or that Shaykh or Maghrib Institute, when they do. In contrast, I think what they're doing is an excellent job, and I think go to it, and I think it's a very good. I think it's a very good gradual step to actually take to learn from those mashayikh in order to help you go up the ladder. Because unfortunately, we either have very scholarly or very low in level. So we need to get into how do we get the people in between is right now our problem. How do we get to the people in between in order to get those that are very low in their level, in order to get them to join those scholars? Now, we mentioned that one before. Now, the other part for the students of ilm, just like you need to have the sabr, in seeking ilm and finding the people to imitate, you also need to be steadfast on piety. What is being steadfast on piety? ما تضليش تتحركي وأعدي أخرس. Being steadfast on piety. The most beautiful thing, the most beautification, let me call it this way. The most beautiful beautification that you can have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى. Who can we finish it? ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. Allah عليك. وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. What is لِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى? If you go to the hospital, the doctors have an attire, right? The nurses have an attire. The medical assistant people have an attire. The secretaries have an attire, right? Each one has a certain dress code. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, لِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. The dress code of taqwa. Now, لِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى can be the outside attire, meaning clothes. And لِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى can also be the outside figure of yourself. The best figure that you can have is the figure of taqwa. ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. That is the best attire. Now, but outside is not always really reflecting what's on the inside. But one way in order to change what's on the inside is by changing what's on the outside. In order to control what's on the outside, you need to control what's on the outside. You control what's on the inside. The outside and the inside, meaning the heart, both relate to one another. If you are trying to change what's on the outside, you have to work on إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not change your situation unless you change what's on the inside. In order for you to change what's on the inside, remember, you have to practice freedom. Freedom? Yes, freedom. How? La ilaha illallah. What is la ilaha illallah? Freeing yourself from worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Freeing yourself from worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and only submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning what? That nobody tells you how to wear, nobody tells you how to what to do, and nobody tells you what's the most important thing that you should be doing, or nobody gives you all these different orders but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're submitting only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in order, Ibn Taymiyyah explains that worship is doing everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes. Yarhamkumullah. Worship is doing everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes, whether from the oral words or the outer actions and behavior, and from the actions of the heart, meaning your intentions. when it comes to worship, if you are talking in vain talk like it's cool, are you really worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are you trying to imitate? Look at the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, he said, لَيْسَ الْمُؤْمِن بِالطَّعَانِ وَلَا اللَّعَانِ وَلَا الْفَاحِشِ وَلَا الْبَذِيءِ. لَيْسَ الْمُؤْمِن بِالطَّعَانِ. A believer doesn't curse, doesn't damn things. وَلَا اللَّعَانِ. الطَّعَان is more the person that's always bashing others. اللعان is the person that's cursing things. وَلَا الْفَاحِشِ. الْفُحْش is using explicit terms for issues that are supposed to be private. You guys know what I mean? وَالْبَذِيء, very close to it, where the person is talking about issues that are supposed to be done in private, talking about it in public. And this is in all cultures, not necessarily in Western only, but in all cultures, it's usually the talk of the sufaha. It's usually, or it is the talk of the sufaha, the people that are ill-mannered, illicit, the people that have become accustomed to ma'siyah. And that's why when we look at the akhlaq, what the person is always getting their talk used to, their talk, their outside behavior, how are they dealing with the outside world, and also their heart, what is their heart busy with, is usually who that person is. And that's why when we look at talk, Talib al-ilm and a random Muslim should not be using any type of ill-mannered words whatsoever. Even if you're swearing at a table, don't swear at it. A good Muslim does not use this kind of talk, because it actually expresses the person and the type of culture that he's exposing his mind, his ears, his environment as part of those words. There's absolutely no way that anybody can be using these types of words unless they got used to that type of environment. Right? There's no way. Now, when we talk about practicing submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're submitting your talk, you're submitting your ears and what they hear, you're submitting your eyes and what they look at, you're submitting your behavior, you're submitting. We said you're submitting even your feelings and your heart to be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your 5 senses. When you submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then and only then is your heart, is your mind going to be prepared for talab al-ilm. Listen to this, you guys. There's no way that your heart can be prepared for talab al-ilm if your heart is busy in a haram environment. No way. Now that type of environment is going to be the one that's affecting you. And remember, your actions reveal the knowledge of Islam and the spirituality of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now here's the thing. Many, when you stand firm, you guys listen, many, especially since most of you are teenagers, many will try, when you first practice the manners and the akhlaq of the saliheen, many will try to act sarcastic with you and try to put you down in order to let me say, make you lose confidence in yourself and be one of them. Many will try to shake in your confidence. But you want to know one thing. Stand firm be confident. Because when you stand firm and when you're confident, that is the only time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you more and more ilm when you stand in front of the challenges. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Simple. If you stand firm in front of those challenges, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to guide you for His paths. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. You do one jihad and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the doors for you. And remember, ilm is part of those subul. Ilm is part of those paths. In order to get to those paths, you have to work on being confident. Even when those around you, especially when you're teenagers, you will get a lot of people that are trying to shake your confidence. By the way, Maghrib, what time is it? Okay. Keeping away when others try to shake your confidence, lots of times, and unfortunately right now even some talabat ilm, I'm starting to see that very often, where they make clowns of themselves thinking that it makes you cool, or it makes you at least closer to the public and to the populace. And unfortunately, without them realizing, this is actually taking the level down of ilm. Even if you want to connect to the populace, it does not mean that you give up on the adab of al-ulama, the adab of tulab al-ilm. You don't give up on it, but you're supposed to elevate them. And I don't want to mention names. Some of them talabat ilm and some of them actually worldwide known and actually use some certain terms. This is not whatsoever appropriate for talib al-ilm. Even if they use that adab, it does. Remember, when you want to take a role model, do not take a role model from the people that are alive. Because al-hayy la tu'man alayhi fitnatun. The person that's alive, you can never guarantee that they're not going to face trials. You want to take an example of somebody that died, and we know that they died on Iman. Because the Sahaba, they used to be afraid from one hadith where the Prophet ﷺ actually said in the hadith that the person might do the action of the people of Ahlul Jannah حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع, to the point that there wouldn't be any distance between them and it except a ذراع, which is this size, just a hand size almost, an arm size. Yet فيسبق عليه الكتاب. Then what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had known before they were even created, predestination, then they will do the action of Ahlul Nar. Why? In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ clarifies that they were doing the action of people of Ahlul Jannah فيما يبدو للناس. They were doing the action of the people of Ahlul Jannah based on what people see. So people saw them that they're doing actions of Ahlul Jannah, but the reality is different. And when we speak about acting in piety, and we said that changes of time and environment. Remember, regardless of the place and regardless of the time, piety and manners stand on principles. The principles of piety, regardless of the culture, waqar, honor, regardless of the culture, is the core of piety in Islam as well. No scholar is considered a scholar unless they're actually implementing that piety and you see it. And because implementing that piety reveals their deep understanding of the ilm. Now knowledge and ilm, it calls for action. It's not just an information to put in your mind. So the person is either calling for just ilm, and the ulama used to say هتف العلم بالعمل فإن أجابه وإلا ارتحل. Ilm called on to action. Ilm would call on to action. Action might respond to it. If it doesn't, it'll walk off. It'll walk off? Ilm. Ilm will walk off if it does not answer the call. Now, another part of talab al-ilm is continual observance. What do we mean by continual observance? Continual observance in where the person is continuously observing their akhlaq in public and in private. Unfortunately, at many times we would see, whether brothers or sisters, when they're in public or around non-Muslims, they become part of them. When they're around Muslims, they're saliheen. كأنما على رؤوسهم الطير. But a good mu'min, whether in public, whether around Muslims or not around Muslims or non-Muslims, they would always practice piety. They would always practice the akhlaq, because remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually watching you. And one thing that I always mention is that remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing dhikr, there are 3 different types of dhikr. Number 1, there's the oral dhikr. Oral dhikr, whether it's in memorizing Quran, or whether it's in doing tasbih, istighfar, tahmeed, etc. Now, or there's audio dhikr. What is audio dhikr? Audio dhikr, you're listening to a lecture, you're listening to Quran, you're listening to good talk. This is audio dhikr. There's the visual dhikr. The visual dhikr, you're taking a moment to see around you. Azamatillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're seeing around you the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the visual dhikr. Every single mu'min needs to take one part of dhikr. There's even the dhikr in action. Listen to this, you guys. There's even the dhikr in action. How's the dhikr in action? You just wearing hijab, you're doing your dhikr in action. Isn't libas al-taqwa dhalika khayr? Is it libas al-taqwa, the dress of taqwa, that's the best? Libas al-taqwa is a type of dhikr. See, sisters, we do dhikr that guys don't do. And many sisters are always feeling, it's like, how come the brothers get to go do al-adhan? Al-adhan is easy to do. Especially in America. Al-adhan, it's easy to do. You do it in the masjid and nobody's going to attack you. But libas al-taqwa, that dress dhikr, you could be in danger at all times. So for the sisters that are always wondering, well, how come can we have a sisters masjid and how come the sisters can't do adhan? Excuse me? You're always doing adhan. You're doing you're doing the dhikr that no brother can do. You stand high. You stand strong. When you're wearing that hijab, nobody will confuse you for anybody that says Allahu Akbar. Your hijab is saying Allahu Akbar. And that's why your hijab, like in France, they consider it as the biggest threat in the world. Because it reminds them of the war, La Poitiers. The war that the war that they had faced with the Muslims, where at one point they were almost defeated by the Muslims, by Abdul Rahman al-Ghafiqi. At one point, It reminds them, hijab just reminds them. Hijab just reminds them of that. You say you don't do Allahu Akbar. You say, oh, I wish I can do the adhan. Some Hanabila said you can do the adhan if it's an only women's area. But your dhikr is a special type of dhikr. A special type. It's a different kind of dhikr. Allahu Akbar in the highest words. When everybody else is bragging about being an object and looking blank, you are saying, I'm looking like Sayyidah Maryam. I'm standing where I say in my highest words, in my loudest voice, Allahu Akbar, and that I will not have anybody decide what I wear and decide what I look like or decide what makes me important except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I should have added right here, maybe so we can always remember it. Dhikr in attire. Dhikr in attire. Why? Because the ayah says, لِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. لِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. Another form of dhikr. Right? The other part, when we talk about the continual observance, and it comes with the different types of dhikr, in order to help you, in order to give you that support as a talib ilm and as a mu'min, you also need the humility and being humble. What is being humble? Being humble, be humble to learn. Be humble towards others. Be humble towards the other students. Be humble towards those that are trying to learn. And be humble towards that are less knowledgeable than you. And be humble to learn from others that may be at the same level of ilm, at the same level of your ilm, but she probably has an ijazah in Quran. She's your age, but she has an ijazah in your Quran. Be a talibat ilm to her too. At one point, remember, the ulama used to say, ضَعَ الْعِلْمُ بَيْنَ اثْنَيْنِ الْكِبْرُ وَالْحَيَاءُ. Ilm is lost between two things: pride and shyness. She's too proud to seek ilm, or too shy to seek ilm. She doesn't want others to see that she doesn't know. Now, when we talk about being humble, it's very important to remember that being humble actually means you don't see yourself as the center or better than others. Because when you see yourself better than others, that's the road that killed, or let me call it the graveyard of طلاب العلم, the graveyard of leaders too. Why? Because once pride comes in, they have set the first foot. They have set the first foot for their burial. And now they're going down. Not to mention that pride is a type of hypocrisy. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا يدخل جنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. Anybody that has one iota of pride in their heart will not enter Jannah. Part of pride is putting others down in order to raise yourself. Or argue with others and being argumentative for the sake of nothing but proving others wrong and you being right. Especially girls, inshallah, all of you will get pious husbands. There's nothing like getting a pious husband. Let me tell you one thing. One very common thing that women do and also men. Not just women, but everybody. But especially when you're in a marriage. When you try to go into an argument without you realizing you're trying to win the argument and you lose your in-laws or your husband's heart because you just were too argumentative. Being argumentative is one of the worst habits. And unfortunately, I'll tell you, being argumentative is one of the worst manners any wife can have. If you are argumentative, change that manner as soon as possible, or else it will end your relationship with others, including your husband. Many women got divorced because of that habit. Listen. A very important saying. كسب القلوب أولى من كسب المواقف. What does that mean? Winning the heart is more important than winning the argument. Make that as the slogan for your life. Winning the heart is more important than winning the argument. Because when you are so focused on winning the argument, you don't realize that to the person that's in front of you, you have put yourself as the center. Without you realizing, the other person, even if you are right, because you are so focused on trying to win the argument, their ego starts acting in defense. What happens? When you so much want to work on winning the argument, you lost the person, you lost their heart, you lost the listening ear. Especially if you're married. Do not let your argument take longer than 5 minutes. 5 minutes. If it's taking longer, just walk away, write it down, email it to your husband, or text it to him. But don't let the argument be face to face, heated. Oh yeah, I really mean it. Write it down, email it to him or text it to him. Same thing for him, but I'm talking to girls, so I'm directing my talk to them or at them. All right? Do not let the argument take more than 5 minutes. If the person is, from the first 5 minutes, they're not listening, they're just talking to themselves. It becomes a monologue, not a dialogue. In order for it to be a dialogue, they have to hear you. Write it down and send it to them. Let them read it. Take a silent moment for reading. It won't be a dialogue if we're just going to be arguing back. Now, that's not just with the husband, but that's even with your friends. Win the heart. Don't focus on winning the argument only. Win the heart. Even if, for example, you go into an argument, for the sake of winning the sisterhood, let it pass. For the sake of winning the sisterhood, for the sake of winning her heart, because she's more important than the argument. The idea, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change it later on. If it's haqq. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change it. But don't lose a sister for your ego. Now, the other part, when we talk about being humble, revealing other sin to insinuate your piety. And this is something very common. That they would want to reveal other sin in order to say, I'm better than them, I don't do this. Now listen to this. There's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ actually says, do not make fun of somebody else's fitna, let you fall in that same fitna, and it will become a challenge to you. And this is very important. If a sister happens to fall in fitna, don't talk about her sin. You reveal her sin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will let you fall in the same type of challenge, the same type of trial, and you will be in that position because you were trying to just reveal somebody else's sin. Part on Judgment Day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover those that covered other people's sins. Your duty is not to reveal other people's sins. Your duty is to cover people's sins and to guide them to haqq. Always practice being humble and be aware of the disease of the tyranny. Pride, greed, jealousy are the first sins that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was disobeyed in. Remember, Iblis, he said, أَأَسْجُدُ لِمَنْ خَلَقْتَ طِينًا? Am I going to prostrate to who you created from clay? Because he regarded himself as in a higher position or better. Pride, again, is the graveyard of talab al-ilm. Now, the other part which is very important, which is zuhd. Zuhd is rarely talked about because unfortunately many confuse and think that it's only the talk of Sufis. That's actually not true. Zuhd is Islam. Zuhd is not a Sufi talk. It's actually Islam. But unfortunately, indeed, Sufis were probably the best to talk about zuhd. Not many, that's their focus. Talk about zuhd and talk about tawadu'. And I think they did the best job in talking about akhlaq, and talking about how to be humble and be humble with others. What is zuhd? Zuhd is not in being poor, but zuhd in not letting the dunya be your focus. Zuhd, you can be a millionaire, but to you, money and wealth will not change your heart, because your money and your wealth is in your hand and not in your heart. When we talk about zuhd, it also means that you don't care about what others have, because to you, you look into it from the perspective that it's all dunya anyways. It's all going to be gone. When you talk about zuhd, you talk some of a different definition of seeing zuhd. It's not about wearing the wool clothes or rag clothes and no, that's not what it is. Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani, who's that? Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani was one of the scholars of the Hanafi madhab. Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani said, when he was told, did you write about zuhd? He said, I wrote a book on the rulings of al-buyu', meaning on the rulings of business and selling. Why? How's that zuhd? Because a true mu'min, somebody that truly has zuhd, it's not about not having money, but it's about being keen that everything was done in the halal way. Alright? Who's Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani? Let me guys tell you a story. Let me tell you about Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani. Muhammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani, or let me tell you about Shaykha. Let me start with the Shafi'ee to give you guys an idea about Muhammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani. You guys heard of Shafi'ee? What's his name? Who's a Shafi'i? Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. Listen to this. Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i was born in Gaza. Where's Gaza? Palestine. Now Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani, he was originally from Mecca. But his dad went to Gaza and he was born in Gaza. Then, at the age of 2, his dad died. So his mother decided that, let me take him back to our family, at least we'll have family there in order to take care of him. She takes him back to Mecca. Yet, because at the time, they considered the city being polluted. So they would send the children, just like the Prophet ﷺ was sent for Halima Sa'diyah. Muhammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani was sent for the tribe of Bani Hudayl. Bani Hudayl. There, he learned poetry. Why was he learning poetry? Because poetry was the tool that they used to learn Arabic through. They wanted to make sure that he spoke Arabic in the most fusha way and in the most accurate pronunciation. What happened was that Muhammad ibn Idris was a Shafi'i. Once he finished with Bani Hudayl and learning poetry from them and the true Arabic from them, then he continued to become a student of all the scholars in Mecca. Now in Mecca, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i was now considered one of the best students in Mecca. So the wali, who is actually like the minister, or you could say the governor of Mecca, he was told that, okay, he graduated from all the scholars of Mecca. Now it was time for him to go to the other best scholar, and that happens to be in Medina. So what did he tell him? The governor of Mecca wrote a note that he should be going to the governor or to the scholar, the best scholar at the time in Medina. And that's going to be Malik ibn Anas. Imam Malik, the scholar, Imam Ahl al-Hijrah, the scholar that was the head of the Madhab Maliki. Alright? Now, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, the governor, sends a note that, okay, time for him to go and get the ilm from Malik ibn Anas. But Malik ibn Anas, who was Imam Malik, he was somebody that pretty much did not like to engage with the rest of the people. He just had his house was far away. He had his dars, even like the class that he used to give, there's no dialogue in it. He would just say the hadith after a hadith after a hadith and leave. There's no dialogue. Unlike Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa, no. It's totally different. Imam Abu Hanifa, he would discuss with the students and they would negotiate and they would go into debates with the Shaykh himself. Look at the difference. Alright? Maybe he was autistic. That's maybe Asperger. Allahu A'lam. In the end is that Imam Malik, there was no dialogue. He did not want to engage with people either. So he would be on his own. But the governor in Medina received a note that this student, Muhammad ibn Idris, has to learn from this main Shaykh Imam Dar al-Hijrah. So what does he do? Well, he gets all his people and gets like the most important personnel in the government and goes to the house of Imam Malik. Knocks at the door. The bonds girl comes out and he gives her and tells her, I need to speak with Imam Malik. Imam Malik said, if he has any questions, who's he talking to? The governor of Medina, the governor. If he's got any questions, Let him write it down and send it with you. Telling the bonds girl, the slave girl, that is. Let him send it with you and we'll write down the answer. If he wants to learn, he knows when our class times are at. So the governor said, no. It's none of that. It's none of that. It's none of that. So he said, I need to talk to him, and it has nothing to do with the class. It has nothing to do with the class and nothing to do with the question. So he comes out. Listen to this, girls. Listen to this. Imam Malik had farasa. What is farasa? Farasa, it's a deep ilm just by looking at the person. They saw with Nurillah, they saw with the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would look at the person, and with Nurillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're able. Remember the hadith in the hadith Qudsi, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every time the person gets closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would become the sight that they see in. The sight that they see in, they will start to have ilm, they will start to have the sight Nurillah subhanahu wa ta'ala through their eyes. Imam Malik looks at the note, looks at Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani, who was only 9 years old. 9 years old, you guys. Completed memorizing Quran, completed all the different important parts in fiqh. And then he said,
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على السلام حي على السلام حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Now, Shafi'ee, Imam Malik comes in and looks at him, and Imam Malik had farasa. And he said one very important thing. He said, Ya fata, ittaqillah fasayakunu laka sha'nun azim. He said, oh son, have taqwa, because you're going to be something great. Oh, you're going to be something great. Now remember, you guys, Imam Malik was the Shaykh of Imam Shafi'ee. Alright? But look at the first thing he told him. You're going to be something great. He saw in him, he's going to be something great. But he told him one first advice. You're going to have taqwa. Because you're going to be something big one day. Saw in him intelligence. He saw in him nur. And that's why he gave him that advice. Imam Shafi'ee, then a main book of hadith was collected by Imam Malik, and it's called Al-Muwatta. Al-Muwatta is in approximately maybe 900, 800 pages. In some copies at least. And it's all ahadith and athar. Hadith are different than athar, because an athar would be based on the Sahabi, alright, or Tabi'i. But the hadith is based on the Prophet ﷺ. Hadith, everything that the Prophet ﷺ said, or whatever he did, or the reports on the Prophet ﷺ. Alright? Now what happened is that it was time for Shafi'ee to memorize al-Muwatta. Shafi'ee memorized al-Muwatta in just a couple of days, almost 9 days. Memorized it. In order to memorize it, he would cover one page so that he won't remember and memorize the other page before another page. He'd cover the page. What is this, a scanner? Right? Now, later Shafi'i becomes a grand scholar there. And then the Khalifa was told that there was a plot that Shafi'i was trying to make to overthrow the Khalifa. So what does he do? They chain Imam Shafi'i and take him in the middle of the desert all the way to Yemen. Chained in the middle of the desert. He was in Yemen, then take him, bring him all the way back to Baghdad. Where's Baghdad? Iraq. They take him all the way to Iraq, chained in the middle of the desert, all the way to Iraq. When they go to Iraq, there he meets Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani. Mohammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani is one of the main scholars of Abu Hanifa. One of the main scholars of who? Abu Hanifa. Who's Abu Hanifa? You remember the scholar, the Madhab Hanafi. Where's the Madhab Hanafi spread at? Pakistanis are all Hanafi. Afghanis, they're all Hanafi. Indians are all Hanafi. You guys are what? Shafi'i. You have to know the story about now Imam Shafi'ee. Okay? Now Muhammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani, Imam Shafi'ee learned from who? Muhammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani. Muhammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani is the scholar of, from what madhab? Abu Hanifa. Madhab Hanafi. Now Muhammad ibn Alhassan Ashaybani, the way that their madhab worked is totally different than the way the madhab Hanafi worked. The madhab Hanafi more worked in analyzing things. Madhab Malik never even left Medina except for Hajj. Madhab Malik only worked in taking the textual resources only. We'll come back after Salah inshallah.